right, so listen, I have to warn you guys. Usually when I do stuff like this, and it's not as often lately or this season in my life, I like to do what I call my 3 B's. Have you ever heard of them?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay, I'm going to tell you. The 3 B's are be brilliant, be brief, and be seated. Now, I have perfected 2 of those. So it's going to be brief, and I'm going to be seated, and God is still working with me on the other one. I really count it an honor that I would be asked to do this, that someone sees the God in you enough to be entrusted with delivering a word. And I do believe He has given me a word. So today we're talking about biblical friendships and how it looks and what it's characterized by. Now, in our word, John 15:15, Jesus calls us friend, right? So if Jesus gave us that title, then the word friendship or the relationship of a friendship is important, right? I believe it's really important. And if you go back a couple of scriptures to John 15:13, it says, greater love hath no man than that of a man who lays down his life for his friends. And I love the way it reads in the Amplified. No one has greater love nor stronger commitment than the man who lays down his life for a friend. I think one of the biggest issues impacting church today, and not necessarily Love Bridge, but the global body of church, is our inability to form and sustain biblical friendships that lead to real community. And now I say real community is because if we look all over, we have lots of groups of people gathering, right? But if you really look closely, often there's no commitment attached to these gatherings, right? So once I found out the theme and God just started downloading in me, I started to ask the question, why is it so hard for us, people in the church, to experience true biblical friendship? Our biggest issue is our inability to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is basically just taking off a layer or layers to reveal what's beneath our curated exterior. Now, how many of you are friends with me on Facebook? Let me see hands. All right, okay. So, for those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, you kind of know me, all right? But for the rest of the people that's friends with me on Facebook that don't know me, and we're friends on Facebook, they really think they know me, right? They really do. And you guys will be like, well, Cindy, they probably do because you just throw up everything, right? If you were friends with me, you would think you knew what goes on in the morning, at night. Like you would think you really know me, right? But they don't. Why? Because what I present is carefully curated. It's really not exterior. They don't really know me. I haven't allowed them to see the layers underneath that curated exterior. I liken it to an onion, right? You know, if you have an onion and on the outside it has that covering and you take that off and it comes off really easy, right? Then if you kind of get a little knife and just do a little slit, it pops off, right? And it keeps going and going and going. Well, that's how we are. And for some reason, it's really difficult for people in general, right? Women specifically, to really get vulnerable with each other. But biblical friendship is about allowing others to see into us past our outer exterior. And that isn't always easy. In fact, I would say it's pretty hard. And a lot of times, one or a couple of reasons that makes it really difficult is fear and pride. And I think God knew that we would have a lot of issues with that, right? Because He warns us about fear and pride, right? Why are we so afraid? Why are we so afraid to allow others to see into us? I think we are afraid that if people really knew us, really knew what we've been through, really knew what we struggle with, they are afraid that they may be judged. They're afraid that they may be talked about. They're afraid that they may be shunned. They are afraid that they may lose the very thing that they are attempting to gain, relationship. If we are to experience biblical friendship, we're gonna have to get this vulnerability thing right. Here's a couple of tricks to doing vulnerability well. Get vulnerable with safe people in appropriate ways and at the appropriate time. Now, these are not rules, they're called boundaries, by which we learn with whom we can be vulnerable, right? When we can do it and how we can do it. Now, the teacher in me wants to model this. I have to give you examples, right? If you guys were at church last Sunday, Miss Rebecca got really vulnerable with us. I can imagine she didn't go out and sharing the fact of some of her heart's desires, right? And if I may, Miss Rebecca, she shared with us her desire, her and her husband, to have children, and how hurtful and how much money they spent to make that happen, right? And she also shared with us that our loving God helped her to get to a point that although she never raised or had her own children, he had given her many people to mother, right? That was a moment of vulnerability. Her sharing or peeling back some of the layers to share with us. Now, I believe you guys to be a safe place, okay? Aren't y'all safe? Are y'all safe?
Yes.
Yeah. And I believe this is pretty much an appropriate time. And obviously, I'm speaking, so I think it's a pretty safe place for me to share my own moment of vulnerability. Now, when I was asked to do this, I really didn't want to do it, right? And just because I'm weird, first of all right? I'm weird. But first of all, I feel like I'm not in that space right now in my life. I have a lot going on, right? But I made a promise to God a long time ago. After wishing a speaking engagement away, he convicted me. And I felt like, he said, Cindy, I will give you opportunities to speak to people. And I want you to do it. And I repented and I said, whenever I'm asked, I will always accept God. But still, in this moment in which I knew I wouldn't say no, right? I was still extremely intimidated. I was really intimidated because I was like, God, okay, you're gonna ask me to look out into an audience of women who, when I look at them, I see women who have years and years of life experience, wisdom, so much success, and you want little old me, someone who's been married 16 years, to minister to someone who's been married 30 plus years? I mean, you want me to minister to people who are still sane after raising children, and oftentimes more than 4 or more than 3? I said, Lord, some of these women have climbed a corporate ladder, and they have so many people looking up to them. What can I say to these people? People, Lord, who have educated hundreds and hundreds of children through the field of education and mentoring, and I maybe have 5 or 10 at one time. You know, you want me to minister to them, and then there are some of you who still have children who are teens and preteens, and your children are still alive. Aubrey, I don't know, you call her at my house and she may not be there tomorrow, you know? So I said, God, what to these group of women that I admire, that I look up to. And I heard two things. The first thing he said, tell them what an answered prayer they are to you personally, and tell them how God has used relationships, friendships in your life to teach you to navigate life both as a giver and receiver of friendship. So with that being said, before coming to this awesome church, my family was a church planting family. It was Jason, myself, and Aubrey. And it was wonderful. It was a wonderful time and journey in our life. And if you guys know anything about church planners, we do some hardcore ministry. Like, you walk on the street, you knock on people's doors, you're having conversations one at a time, and a lot of times you're ministering to the unchurched or people who have fallen out of love with the church. And it's not always easy. And if you don't find the balance of attracting more mature saints, you can find yourself with a church that is unbalanced and everything is coming from the top, in which that's an unhealthy church. So by the time my husband or someone had reached out to my husband from this place, we had been in church planning for 6 years. We had welcomed Lucy maybe in year 4, maybe. And I was done.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
literally.
Yeah, right.
I was tired. And my prayer, or it began, take this away from us if it has to look like this. Because I didn't have anything left to give. And God, being the God he is, sent us here. So when Woodstock reached out and offered Jason the awesome privilege of pastoring here, he not only answered my prayer of relief from ministry as I knew it to a more balanced church, he also opened the door to allow me to experience more biblical friendship than I have really ever experienced it before. This church, from the roots of First Baptist Austell, embodies friendliness. And you guys have been a blessing to me. In fact, and not only have you been a blessing, but you are friendly, period. You have laid a foundation that the rest of us who came after us, Woodstock, and now Love Bridge, gets to receive from and experience. Now, if you don't believe me, someone recently wrote on one of our social media posts, and she's in here, but I'm not gonna call her out. She's gonna know who she is. She said, thankful to be able to visit a church with such welcoming people. Words cannot adequately express how much this church's genuine friendliness and kindness has meant to our family. I can't put it much better than that. You have embraced me, us, my family. You have shown yourself friendly. You've opened your circles of friendship and created a space for me. The relationship may look different. Some may go deeper than others, but whether it's an exchange of a friendly hug and smile on Sunday morning to conversations we do at ministry events or in small group to deeper conversations over lunch and dinner and spending time with each other outside of church, this church has been a safe place for me and others. And it started with you showing yourself friendly, being willing to accept others right where they are and creating space for them. I have so much gratitude for this church, my church. Thank you for being an answered prayer. Now, the other thing that God told me to share with you, I attribute much of who I am to the friendship relationship God has allowed me to form over the course of my life. And I believe we should all have 3 types of friends. And now let me say this, I am not this original. I listen to y'all's pastor. I do that occasionally, not all the time, okay? Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but there was one sermon he preached that really stayed with me, and it was a couple of years ago. It may have been before here, and I'm not sure if he used this example in one of his sermons here, but he said that there are 3 types of people we need in our lives. And I'm going to extend that and say there's 3 types of friends that I feel like we need in our lives. They are a Paul friend, a Barnabas friend, and a Timothy friend. Now, if you guys have a pencil, I want you to jot those down, okay? Because I'm going to give you some homework later on. And as you jot down Paul, Barnabas, and Timothy, I also want you guys to draw a bell curve. Now this might be the special education teacher in me, but a bell curve just kind of looks like going from a valley to the mountain and back down to the valley, okay? So it's just like, woo! And at the very top of that bell curve, I want you to write me and Barnabas. And you can put an S on that. I don't want to try to pronounce that because that will sound funny, because it could be more than just you, okay? Or more than just one Barnabas. Then in front of you, okay, so going down this way as if they come up the mountain and come down at the base, we're going to write Paul. And then looking back, we're going to write Timothy, okay? So now we're going to talk about Paul, Barnabas, and our Timothy friend. Paul is the type of friend who is ahead of you, ahead of where you are currently. This person or this friend offers wise, godly counsel, advice, and encouragement. They set a lived example. Paul, if y'all want to call her or call him Pauline, it might be appropriate, has been there and can give insight from one who is on the other side of what you're currently facing. Through them, God shows us what is possible, what life is, and what we can achieve. Now, as I look out into this room, I have found many Pauls among you. And you may not even know it. You may be like, well, Cindy, we don't talk that often. But it's just how God has wired me. I have lived my life by watching others, sometimes silently, and I learn lots of lessons. I get inspired. And so there are many Pauls among you. And I've learned, I don't know if I should call them lessons, or God has made me more aware by watching your journey or listening to you tell your journey. Some are harsh realities that we may fail to think about. I see examples of how to continue with a joyful life after losing a spouse. But I also learned that I have an option, God forbid, but if it happens, I have options of how I decide to continue on. Whether it's like Miss Sarah, who treasures memories of her Mr. Dale and have decided that it's just going to be her and Jesus until they are reunited. Or Miss Lucinda and Mr. Gordon, who treasures memories of their loved ones but have decided to do life together as life partners. Maybe it's Miss Linda. I saw a bit of what grief of a spouse looks like and how often it causes you to pull away, but how she has come back among friends, serving, and helping her neighbors. Miss Margaret, Miss Rose, Miss Ann, Miss Melinda, Miss Odessa, Miss Marie, Miss Kathy, Miss Joyce. I see steady examples of commitment to your service to God. Whether it's Miss Melinda in children's ministry, Miss Margaret teaching her small group, or Miss Rose blessing us Sunday with fresh flowers. You ladies exemplify your service is unmatched. Miss Rebecca and Miss Ellen, women who have distinguished themselves in their marriages and careers, reaching back to help mentor and mother spiritual children, nieces and nephews. Miss Charlotte and Miss Linda, who are walking out examples of devoted spouses who are true to their vows in good times and not so good times. Miss Thelma and Miss Rose, I've seen the strength of not giving up and continuing to live after the loss of a child. And God forbid, I have to live that out. But because of your vulnerability, I see that I could go on. Miss Karen, who shows me how to bravely face life issues, not deny them away, but allow God to work in me to go through them. Miss Linda, I see the committed friendship you have with Miss Grace and your care for her. Examples of those like, I call them Mama Joys. She don't let any grass grow under her feet. She don't mind working, and she don't mind quitting when it doesn't suit her. I see how retirement doesn't mean I have to just sit down. Cindy, wow. Thank you for your intentionality. Where are you? Back there. Your intentional friendship, our mom conversations. Thanks for saying the hard stuff and butting in. She doesn't really butt in, but she'd always be like, well, don't get mad. And I'm like, no, tell me, it's okay. That's a true friend who's willing to risk telling you the hard stuff that might make you mad, right? Janny, I can't forget you. You are living faith. I've seen you walk it out with your children, with your husband. I see you do the delicate work of doing our part and allowing God to do his part. And I know I didn't call all of you, but I see you. And I thank you for showing me your wounds and your victories. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey, no matter if it's frequent conversations, chats at ministry events, or smiles and hugs on Sunday. I'm a better person because I call you friend, and you serve as a Paul in my life. Having Pauls in your life can make the journey easier. At least it can foreshadow the road ahead. Next, we all need a Barnabas. Barnabas is the type of friend who is right where you are currently. This friend is in the trenches with you. Although Barnabas might be dealing with things that are specifically different from what you're dealing with, you look at Barnabas as your peer. Unlike Paul, Barnabas has not been there and done that. But what Barnabas does is travel the journey alongside of you. Essentially, you and Barnabas are at the same place in life. And you need this friend because sometimes Paul can be so removed from the day-to-day struggles that you are facing because he has already gone before you. So in my case, when my dear Ari and dear Kara are just giving me the blues, my Pauline, aka Miss Outspoken Miss Linda, she'll look at me and say, oh girl, I've been there. You're gonna be all right. Enjoy it, it won't last, right? And I appreciate that because I know I'm gonna come out. But in this moment, sometimes what I really want to hear is the likes of Danny and Rogier and Mary Beth say, oh girl, I just went through this last week. We're still working through it, but I did this, or I'm doing this. We can work together to make sure whatever. Sometimes we need to have that friend who understands that pile of laundry that's been sitting there for 2 weeks, and I just take some clothes off, wash them more, and pile them back up. And they understand because somewhere in their house is a pile of laundry too.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a little truth to that adage, what misery loves company. Just kidding. But we do need those in our life. And we need to be able to identify with those that are in the same stage, right? And speaking of that, I thank God for Miss Diana, who is current or just joined our church a couple of weeks ago, because she's the only one that knows how of the pain of paying for all of these diapers and changing all of these pooper diapers, in which one of those diapers came off in the house today, filled with her gift. Now, maybe that was too much. Wrong place, right, to talk about it. Okay, I'm going on. Diana will understand. The last type of friend we need is our Timothy. Timothy is a friend who has not made it to where you are currently. In many cases, you may be a Paul in this person's life. For this friend, you offer wise, godly counsel, advice, and encouragement. For them, you have been there and you can give insight from one who is on the other side of what they're currently facing. And just as you receive freely from your Pauls, always find a Timothy to freely give what you have learned. Can you identify who your Paul, Barnabas, and Timothy are? Can you imagine the impact of the church if we truly intentionally approach friendships like this? Now, after I had already started writing this out and going back, looking over it, something was like, Cynthia, you might have some people who they're like, listen, I'm already in the golden years. I really don't have no more Pauls. And I was like, that might be right. You done did so many things, been through, you done seen a lot. Jesus, that's your Paul. Jesus, okay? Biblical friends differ from other connections in that Jesus is the example. So we can't look at friendship as the world sees it. It's not about surrounding yourself only with people who look like you, act like you, the same age as you, the same stage of life as you. Your friendship should be just as diverse as the body of Christ. We need old friends, young friends, Republicans and Democrat friends, friends with children, friends without children, some crazy friends, and some grounded friends. When I thought of that, I thought a college friend. We loved her dearly. But the whole group would be like, oh my Lord, here she comes. Like she just had this mature, sophisticated everything about her. And the funny thing about her is her then boyfriend, who's her husband now, she acts so normal around him. And we were like, hi, and I'm not saying names because I don't know where this video, it gets it. And we're like, how in the world? Like, what is that like? Like, she pipes down a lot. Like, she is such high energy, but you know what? The reason why she needs friends different than her is to kind of help her level out, help her keep her grounded. That's what her husband does for her, right? And I'm sure when we allowed ourselves to be around her, we did it as well. The point is, never limit the friends God places in your life just because they may not act like you, think like you, or look like you. Now, earlier I spoke about how biblical friendship leads to real community. Biblical friendships thrive in community, but there isn't much community without biblical friendships. I bring this up because in order to have these types of relationships in our church community, we have to do our part to cultivate them. We have to be intentional with getting to know each other. We have to be intentional to have conversations with those who may not look like us. We have to be willing to support the events we have at church and to fellowship. We have to be willing to help create and bring about these events, right? In short, we all have to do our part, not short of being willing to share your life, get involved, and give others the opportunity to pray for you and with you. Biblical friendship is characterized by being loyal, honest, intentional, vulnerable, as we already talked about. It's seeking to give the advantage and not always taken. It's not always equal. Sometimes you would do more pouring and other times you might do more receiving. Be assured, however, that I'm not talking about unhealthy relationships that deplete you or require you to be somebody else's God. However, our covenant connection with God, our covenant with God, will determine the level of our devotion with people and our capacity to receive and give friendship. What do I mean? If you're shallow with God, you're going to be shallow with people. These people don't have the capacity to be vulnerable and trusting, and often they don't know what it is to be a friend or receive friendship, much less build community. This is the revolving door of church people at large and small churches. If you're intimate with God, you can be deep with people. If you're secure in Christ, you can be open, transparent, and honest. In short, you have all you need to be a biblical friend and receive biblical friendship. The true test of biblical friendship is commitment and sacrifice for one another and the community you have formed. Let's continue to be a friendly church, Love Bridge.